And we're here for another episode of Entering the Sports World. I'm here with Toronto Raptors primary statistician and London Lightning statistician, Karl Toulouse. Thanks for coming on, Karl.
Oh, thank you. And if you don't mind me adding, also Canadian Elite Basketball League statistician as well.
My bad, missed that on the LinkedIn page.
No, no bad. Just I've had a lot of really good opportunities. I'm a very lucky guy.
Yeah, that's cool. So we were just talking before the interview started. Do you kind of want to tell people, because it's not a full-time gig, do you want to kind of explain how the game to day works?
Well, day to day, depending on the franchise, the team. For example, I'll tell you about Toronto. Considering I live in London, it's a 400-kilometer return journey. What I will do is I'll leave the house somewhere between 2 and 2:30 in the afternoon, make my way to the GO train at Aldershot or Burlington, jump on the GO train. That way it takes me right to the doors of the Scotiabank Arena. I go inside. They like to have me there an hour early, which is pretty easy to do with a 7:30 start now. I meet my crew. I have a pregame meal. We review anything from the NBA that needs to be reviewed. And because we've been with the team so long, we basically just go out and do our jobs.
That's cool. All right, now we're gonna go back to the beginning. You are from Wellsburg, which is pretty cool for me, with that only being about half an hour drive away from Chatham, which is where I'm from. Now, growing up in Wellsburg, that's known as a lacrosse town. Now, did you always have a passion for basketball growing up, or did you always have a passion for lacrosse as well?
I had a passion for a number of sports, but really basketball trumped everything. Once I had that first rim in the backyard at my house on once was Foreign Street South, now known as Old Glass Road. Uh, Once my parents got me that rim and backboard and we had it on the garage, it was just so much fun every day. The boys would come over. We'd have pickup games almost every day during the summer, and during the winter time, it was not uncommon for me to be out there until the ball lost its bounce because it got too cold. But as for lacrosse town, yeah, I was pretty hooked on lacrosse as well. Really love the sport, still enjoy it today. And I actually picked up a stick at age 31 and started playing recreational. Um, my first 2 years were in Toronto until we moved to London in 2005. And picked up in the house league as well here in London with the what are now the Werewolves of London Lacrosse.
That's cool. So did you play growing up as well?
I didn't. I took lessons when I was 5, and I just didn't find it as fun. I'm not sure what the problem was, and especially considering I was a little bit of a rink rat at the Wellsburg Arena. My aunt and my mother were very involved with the canteen at the Wellsburg Memorial Arena. So during summer times, and this goes way back before your time, but there was a franchise known as the Wellsburg Satans. They replaced the Wellsburg Red Devils in the early to mid 70s, I believe. And then the franchise came back in the junior B tier later. And of course, we know what happened in 2001 with the Founders Championship.
Yeah, I can see the name change. I never knew they used to go by the Satans.
Yeah, and they played a lot of the same teams that they
They
do
wouldn't.
today. The
Yeah.
Sarnia Pacers, for example, played out of the Point Edward Arena. I think they still do now.
Yeah, yeah, they actually go by Point Edward now as
Point
well.
Edward. Yep.
Yeah, no worries. We'll get into it though. Did you always have a love for statistics and keeping track of stats and stuff like that?
Well, I think it was always in the back of my mind, but not to the level where I expected to go pro at any point in my life. I think the key moment was when I was at Sioux College. I played 2 years of college basketball there. I then transferred to Seneca to enhance the skills that I learned with my 2 year diploma at the Sioux. And when I went to Seneca, I didn't make the team. And because I had had basketball in my life the whole time, I just decided that, you know what, I've got to have this game as part of my life. So I talked to the uh, head coach of the team at that time. His name was Ernie Armstrong, now retired. he and I had a nice long chat, and he said, well, Karl, I've got people doing this and that and everything else. Have you ever tried stats? And I said, well, I messed around with it a little bit in high school, but you tell me what you want and I'll make it happen. And I started very basic statistics, such as keeping points, foul shots, rebounds, free throws, steals, turnovers, and then it just expanded. So much so that the team for Seneca started taking me on the road with them. And then the women's team at Seneca found out that I did that. And of course, they wanted to keep track of their statistics. And again, it snowballed from there. So again, something that you didn't expect as an opportunity created even more opportunities. And at that time, I was just really lucky to have the people in my life at that time that wanted that done.
That's cool. Hearing you started out and just it grew by just who you knew, and they seen like your hard work really did pay off.
It did. It did it. And with Seneca, because they hosted a tournament called the Can-Am Classic every year around Christmas time, in between Christmas and New Year's, there was teams coming up from the U.S., from the Buffalo area that were not necessarily junior colleges. Like Canisius just made their trip up once. Niagara University came up once. And then you had schools from Ontario, and sometimes I believe Winnipeg came in one year to Seneca as well. And while I was there, there were coaches from the U.S. teams that saw me what I was doing for Seneca. And it's like, well, Seneca's not playing next. Do you want to stick around and do our game? I'm like, okay. So again, who you know, and just falling into these opportunities. And if they see you doing it, you get noticed. And at that time, I was one of the only guys in Toronto, a city of 3 million,
Wow.
that did that.
Wow. So just time and a place, right?
Exactly.
Wow. So speaking of Toronto, how did you get in with the Raptors? Did it kind of just word of mouth kind of build your way up, or?
It was word of mouth, and it was my connection at Seneca, Ernie Armstrong. Um, I will go back to 1991, in which I had finished 2 full years at Seneca. I finished my program, excuse me, and I was lucky enough that one day the phone rang, and it was the athletic director at Seneca saying, Karl, I've got a gentleman by the name of Zach Hill from the Philadelphia 76ers. They're having an exhibition game in Toronto at Maple Leaf Gardens in October. Are you interested in doing stats? And I'm like, am I? Am I ever?
Yeah.
So I instantly accepted that request. Zach Hill called me. I was on co-op assignment at IBM Canada at that time in Markham. So I took the call from Zach. He made all the arrangements, and Philadelphia played Phoenix on October 21st of that year. That was my first NBA experience. And then 3 years later, 1994, the World Championships of Basketball were held in Toronto, coincidentally, just after the NBA had granted Toronto and Vancouver their NBA franchises. So during that during that World Championship experience, I started to meet all these people that were part of the John Pitoff group, which is the group that won the bid to gain a team in the NBA. And after meeting all those people, I received a call the following May from them saying, we've got a free agent camp at Seneca College. Can you come in? I'm like, absolutely, here I am. And the rest just evolved into a full-time stats game day position, which is only part-time, but I was brought in, and the rest is history, 25 years later.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
So going back to the start when you were starting with your exhibition game with Philadelphia and
Yeah.
Phoenix, what was that like? How nervous were you going into that game?
Very nervous. For people that know me, had a couple bugs in my tummy the morning of the game. Then the game was a 7 o'clock tip down at Maple Leaf Gardens. Very, very nervous. So nervous that I think I got to the arena 4 hours ahead of time. They asked me to be there 2 hours ahead of time. Got to watch the Phoenix warm up, the Philadelphia warm up. Saw some people that I consider very heroic in the NBA. You know, you've got an old time coach, the late Cotton Fitzsimmons. You've got Kevin Johnson, an outstanding point guard. You have Tom Chambers. You have Dan Marley, a former resident of Traverse City, Michigan. All very, very good basketball players. And Zach Hill from the Philadelphia, he was part of the media relations area. He set me all up. Everything at that time, believe it or not, was still pen and paper in the NBA. They hadn't evolved for neutral site games to have the computer logic and infrastructure in place, but it wasn't long after. And in 1995, when I started with the Raptors, this brand new software package came out by a company called IDS, and the package was called GameStat. And I was flown to New York to the headquarters of the NBA Entertainment, and I met with everybody in the Eastern Conference of the NBA, and I trained with them that very same weekend. It was so cool to rub elbows with all these statisticians that had been there for years and years. Some of the oldest crews were Philadelphia, Boston, Cleveland, New York. It was amazing.
Wow.
Absolutely amazing.
What was it like doing pen and paper? Because I've had to do that for some OHL games, and that's hectic on its own. I could not imagine keeping track of points and all that, or just even any type of stats like at a professional level like that on pen and paper.
Well, based on my experience at Seneca, I had done everything pen and paper. I would go back to my office at IBM following the games, and I would typeset them into, again, this is before your time, but Microsoft Excel. The equivalent way back when was Lotus 123, and spreadsheet software. That's all it was. And I would input all the statistics, and I would go back to the gym that same night, and I would post them at the athletic complex. But in this case, for the game at Maple Leaf Gardens, Zach actually took the statistics and he said, "Karl, how can we get these ready?" He goes, "Can you give me 15 minutes?" And I brought out these blank spreadsheets, and I just replaced the Seneca numbers and information with the players for both Philadelphia and Phoenix, filled it out as best I could. They knew the accuracy wasn't going to be what their normal accuracy would be in their home arenas or wherever they're going to be. But at least they gave me a chance, which
Wow.
was amazing. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. Now, you've been with the Raptors since the beginning, but last year was a very magical year for them. What was that playoff run like?
Uh, I'm still not sure I can put it into words because it borders on magical. It battles on, and I'm borrowing a word from Brendan Malone, the first ever coach of the Raptors, when they beat the Bulls at Skydome. And he said he called that win euphoric. And I'm like, you know what? It was just an unbelievable run. And I think the most exciting moment was when they were late in the game of game 6 against Milwaukee Bucks, and we knew we had won. And I just gave a little fist bump at the table. I'm like, oh my God, we're going to the show. This is really happening. And again, I still get goosebumps to this day thinking about that. After all those years of watching sometimes mediocre, sometimes worse basketball, then some really good runs, some really exciting times back in the early 2000s with Vince Carter, Charles Oakley, Antonio Davis, Tracy McGrady, names like that we had a chance.
Yeah.
And, you know, what would have happened had Vince Carter made that fadeaway jumper at the end of Game 7? He could have sent us to the next round that year. Who knows what could have happened, because that team could have done some serious damage.
Yeah, and there was always a wonder if he never went to his graduation that day. That's the only big skeptical thing I always see.
I would never be skeptical of Vince. I would have done the same thing. Who wouldn't want to, after putting that much work in, to have their diploma?
Oh, I'm not throwing that against him. I'm just saying, yeah,
No.
like that was a little like fatigue, I guess, would be more.
It was always part of the conversation. Yep.
Yeah. Now, going back to their big run, one of the big memorable moments of it was the Kawaii Shot. What was your view or your memory of the Kawaii Shot?
The shot.
Yeah, that's
the
how you can
shot.
say it. Yeah.
It was an awesome moment that's going to live as a Canadian heritage moment. Waiting for that shot, the photograph to be on a stamp one day. It's so historic. My vantage point, I was right on the center court line, second row. When the inbound pass came to Kawaii, he received the ball above the three-point arc on the left-hand side, came all the way across, dribbled into the corner. I saw Embiid, I saw Simmons. I'm like, oh my God, we're going to overtime. And then because I had crowd in between the three-point line, my vantage point, the three-point line, and the Raptors bench, it wasn't until he jumped in the air with that fadeaway floating jumper that I saw the top of Kawhi's elbows, the top of his head. I saw the shot release. And then because the ball went up, but I still had crowd in front of me from that same vantage point, I then saw the rim, and I saw those very, I'm trying to think of the right word, very stressful bounces that occurred before that ball went down. You could hear a pin drop in the building at the time. It was unbelievably, eerily silent, but it was that anticipation that it went off the back of the rim. You could hear a couple minor sighs, but that bounce went up and up and up and down and down. And it's like, oh my God, that's going in. And one time in my career, I stood up and started screaming to the top of my lungs because I was a fan for that mere millisecond. And the gentleman who calls the games for me was hitting me in the rib cage with his fist saying, record the shot, record the shot, record the shot. And I was still like yelling to the top of my lungs because I was just so excited. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll sit down and record the shot. And yeah, that was an amazing moment that Raptor Nation will never forget.
Not only Raptors Nation, all of Canada will not forget that. That was, I still, like, everyone, you could ask anyone where they were for the Kawaii shot. It's one of those where you could just say, where were you moments?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that. And then another one you really got to look at is just when they actually won the championship. What was that like?
Well, it's funny you mentioned this. I have told this story a couple times. The night they won the championship, I was actually training a crew in the CEBL out in Abbotsford, British Columbia, called the Fraser Valley Bandits. So the first half of the game for the Raptors, it was a 9 o'clock start here Eastern, which is 6 o'clock Pacific. And the game in Fraser didn't start till 7 o'clock. So up on the big score clock at Fraser in Abbotsford, they showed the first half of the game, and most of the fans had loaded into the stadium early. Just a little small arena, nice size for, minor league basketball. And they were all sitting there watching the first half of the game. And I felt kind of horrified for our league, the CEBL, when they turned off the game, started the game operations routine for the Fraser Bandits, and the game had to start, right? And I noticed a lot of people in the stands kind of went up into the main corridor to watch the TV screens of the Raptors game at that same time. I felt bad, but I totally understood. It was just a complete fluke that you had these two games going on at the same time. Conflict like that don't happen every day. And the funniest part of this story is I texted my sister, who lives in Cambridge, and I said, my sister's name is Karen. I said, Karen, text me with updates as often as you can. Even if it's no score, even if it's the timeout, send me information. I need to know, because I'm so busy with the crew at the score table that I didn't want to not
Not
be
help.
there for them. I was paid to go there to help them. So
Yeah, you're still doing
uh,
your job.
so my sister was texting me throughout. I saw that the game was very, very close. It was a tight game 6 right up until the end, pretty much. And my sister stopped texting me when it was 112, 110. And there was a timeout at Fraser. And I texted my sister and I said, where's my update? It has not been 112 to 110 the last half hour. And she said, well, there's a technical foul. Something's going on, and I'm not really sure. And I don't think the commentators are sure what's going on. And sure enough, not even 10 seconds after that text, the public address announcer at Fraser said, "And your 2019 NBA champions are the Toronto Raptors." And I looked over at him and I waited for him to shut off the mic. And I said, and I'll leave out the explicit word that I used in my sentence. And I said, "You have got to be kidding me. I'm finding out through a public address at an arena across the country of Canada that my team won the NBA championship." And of course, my sister texted and said that they won 114-110. And I'm like, yeah, okay, you're all forgiven. Woohoo, we're champions.
Yeah,
And
that's
once the game was over, I went back to the hotel that I was staying and I watched footage right up until probably 3 in the morning Pacific, which was 6 a.m. our time. And what was even funnier is CBC Radio had booked me for an interview at 6:30 the next morning Eastern. So I might have slept for about a half hour. But after that interview, I had a little snooze. I checked out of the hotel and got on my plane and went home. So,
that's
but that
funny.
was how I received the championship news, I guess you could say.
That's too good. You'd you'd think they'd probably be like, oh, he's probably out partying, celebrating, but no, you're just watching the game tape. That's cool.
Well, actually, I didn't watch the Game 6 footage until about 2 weeks after. I just kept watching the highlights, and of course, when they announced the parade, I wasn't missing that. So I left London at like 4 in the morning, got on the GO train, went into the city on that beautiful day, and that was another cherished, amazing moment.
And one thing that not a lot of people realize with part-time staff or even statisticians, you guys get a ring for that. You have it with you, if I'm not mistaken, if you want to show the viewers.
I I can do that. Yeah. I'm lucky enough to be a recipient of a championship NBA ring. I'm just trying to
Yeah, a
get
little.
this onto the camera right about there.
There we
And then just to know that it's real, it's not one of those fakes. They put my name on it. So I've got
there
my own
you go.
championship ring. I'm very, very, very fortunate to receive it.
That is our first professional ring, championship ring on the show.
There you go.
Yeah. So, with that being said, what's it like being a part of the London Lightning as well?
It's a lot of fun. It's a very close knit group. I'm lucky enough to have somebody else originally from Wallaceburg on the crew. Her name is Brenda Schultz, formerly Brenda Lightfoot before being married. Her father was my grade 8 teacher at A. Wright Public School. So if you want to talk about the small world thing and how it fits together, yeah, Brenda's on the crew. And a huge difference between crews is that we only have 3 people on the London crew versus 5 in Toronto. The crew in London, again, is very close knit. So 3 people for statistics. And then you have the rest of the game crew, which is your official score. You have your clock operators, your shot clock operators, and everybody else that needs to be there like public address, etc. Smaller stadium, but the same effect. It is wonderful what the London franchise has done for championships in the 9 years of the NBL Canada existence. Always a lot of fun. You get to know the players, whereas in the NBA, you don't really get that opportunity. You have to stay away from them. But in the NBL Canada and CEBL, I get that opportunity to meet the players, to high five them. With the exception of this year, you get a lot of elbow taps with the players, and just to be safe and follow the protocols. And I love it. I love doing all statistics, and most people that know me know that I do it for free. Wherever, just sign me up. I'm ready.
That's cool. So, what are some of the biggest differences you've noticed since COVID's happened with your job?
Well, the NBA obviously shut down in March, March 13th or 14th, I think it was the shutdown,
Yeah, right
approximately
in
those
that
days.
date. I think it was actually the
Right,
15th, but yeah,
whatever it was, we
yeah,
kind of
right
knew
around
that
there.
the season was in jeopardy at that time. So we kind of had to sit back, wait for decisions to happen. The NBL Canada wasted no time and followed suit. They shut down and they did not resume. And the CEBL did something very historic. They were the first Canadian professional league to return back into, if you want to call it service or a schedule. And they did a 16-day summer series tournament down in St. Catharines. I was invited down, and I worked with a wonderful group of professionals that we all got together and we made it happen. We did 26 straight games, including the championship. And that's a lot of basketball in 16 days, considering the first 2 days of the tournament were for us to train with game operations and all the safety protocols. The Niagara Regional Health Authority. You had the CEBL management there, and I'm not sure if you know this name, a famous CFLer is actually the commissioner of the CEBL. His name's Mike Morreale, a very famous Hamilton Tiger Cat, and all around very, very good person in general. I'll work with him any day. And yeah, we went down to St. Catharines. We were housed in a hotel. We had our own little bubble going. We had protocols. To enter the building, you had to answer that questionnaire, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen it. Do you have a cough? Do you have these symptoms? And the list goes down, and you got to listen to every single one of them. It's part of the protocol. You get your temperature taken, you wear a mask, and with my wife being in the health industry, I wore gloves almost every game. And the safer you are, the better. You cannot take this virus for granted.
No, and you don't want to just take it for granted because the second wave is still yet to come, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. With that being said, what is something you notice a lot of statisticians coming up often take for granted or make a mistake on before they can even get started?
Well, I'm not sure if I would consider it a mistake or not, because a lot of the stats people, depending on the league, they are prepared properly. We show them the software. We show them how to call a game. We cannot stress enough the focus involved. And the easiest thing to do, and if you want to call it a mistake or you want to call it a distraction, and it's exactly that. It's a distraction. You start watching the game. It's like, ooh, look how close I am. This is really cool. Oh, that was a nice shot. Well, you should call that shot. You really should. You should record it too. So, and it's very hard sometimes for me not to be a little sarcastic. It's like, I'll even look at my caller. That was a really nice shot, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. He faded away. I said, next time, can you call it for me so I can input it in the software? And you just kind of giggle about it because you've been around long enough. You have that attention to detail still that you can still get stuff in. But the inputters really rely heavily on their callers. And the callers rely heavily on the extra set of eyes that are at the table with us. Hence, in London, my main caller's name is Jay. He's phenomenal. Brenda is my secondary set of eyes, and she does everything pen and paper. She writes in a code that I can understand to catch up anything on the computer that we may have missed. And we'll do that catch up during timeouts, because games, as you know, can be very fast paced, and they will not stop for a statistician to catch up, ever.
Yeah. With that being said, what's another thing you think somebody could work on to maybe push to be a statistician one day?
Well, there are a number of things they can do, but something I encourage people that are in love with the game or just want to be part of it, have it a part of their lives, I would consider telling them to educate yourself. But the thing is play the game as long as you can. If you are able to, play the game, learn the game, master the game. And when I say master, I'm not expecting you to be a Kobe or a Michael Jordan or a LeBron. I'm saying it, master it up here. That way you understand that a steal can result only by a turnover. A turnover can happen without a steal because sometimes the ball goes out of bounds. A missed shot could have a block. If it doesn't have a block, it most certainly will have a rebound. There's little things like that that you've got to think about as a stats person, and it's called game flow. And that's one of the easiest things to forget. And that's why I always encourage go onto YouTube, watch footage of how games used to be. The footage is there. You can type in, you can watch 5 minutes of a game, and in your head, you can call shot missed, Lakers 23, rebound, Raptors 7. Little things like that can help your mindset grow into it. And by all means, there's all kinds of opportunities at not only the high school level, but the college level and university level in Canada. Get one of those jobs through your school's phys ed or athletic department. They are there, and some of them are paid positions. Learn the game, love the game, be part of it. It only will enhance your school experience, and you'll still have the game as part of you as you move forward. It's so important.
And lastly, I got one last question here. For just anyone who's thinking about joining the sports world, what would be your biggest piece of advice?
Well, this goes for all games, and I think my last answer may have touched on it, but play the game as long as you can, love the game, embrace the game. Things are not always going to be easy, but when the good times happen, they happen for a reason, and they will make you so happy that good time will shine in your career move. Have fun, love what you do, embrace what you do, and all things will turn out.
Perfect. This was a great interview, Karl. I hope you'll come on soon, or not soon, but in the future. If you're willing to come back on. There's still plenty of things I'd love to ask you. Uh, Thanks for coming on, though.
Bryce, it was my pleasure, and I wish you well with this internet programming. Your skills are very good so far, so have fun with it, just like I said, because I think you're onto something. Enjoy, and whenever you'd like to hear my same old boring stories or something new, feel free to call.
Thank you.